What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 101 of the Finale Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Nahum and Yossef to talk some NFL football. Guys, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on again. Excited to come talk some football.
Yes,
Of
sir.
course.
Same here, man. It's always a pleasure being on the podcast, brother.
Yeah, of course, and always a pleasure to have you guys on. As we go into week 10, a lot of things are kind of unfolding, a lot of different things are happening in the NFL. So, starting off, I wanted to ask you guys, what was your biggest takeaway from week 9?
Biggest takeaway of week 9 for me was, maybe not biggest takeaway. Let me do the biggest disappointment. I'm kind of disappointed in what Houston has been doing thus far in this season, and the record might not showcase that, but I still think there's an underwhelming amount of football being played. Um, by those guys. I think there's a level that they can get to that they've shown us obviously on offense last year, but their offense is not clicking that well. Their defense is not, of course, is not the
Can you blame
hallmark of the
them?
team.
Can
Huh?
you blame them? I said, can you blame them though? They lost
Yeah.
Davis, Nico
Yeah.
Collins. It's
Nico
expected to
Collins.
progress.
I do expect a regression, but I don't think that's quite it. I think there's been a level of underwhelmingness that I've kind of seen throughout the season, and they've been doing a great job at finishing games and closing out quarters and halves and ultimately games. But I do think um, their record is a little inflated, and they're kind of not the team that their record might say they are. But ultimately, what that affords them is that affords them the ability to kind of get those good habits back in form and improve as the season goes on. So I don't know how indicative this is of their playoff success. However, I don't see major improvements from last year, let alone I might see some regression going on. Even in CJ Stroud himself, running, when he gets out of that pocket and he throws on the run, he might be the best thrower in that type, outside of like maybe Patrick Mahomes. So I guess I was just a little disappointed to see them lose to the Jets. The Jets really had nothing to play for, but they went out there and put multiple touchdowns on their heads, and their defense is the unit that I just need to see a little bit more from.
What have you kind of been seeing from CJ Stroud this year? Do you think it's just been a second year slump?
That is really a second year slump. The idea behind it is you're not new to the league anymore. That beginner's luck fades away, but also your competition for different coaches were able to study you all summer and understand what you like to get to, what tendencies you like. So you're just a little bit more studied up on. So naturally, there is a layer of that. But secondly, I think their O line is just is a big deal, and it's causing to a lack of real pass protection, and some of his receivers are down, which doesn't help at all. So I think it's kind of the accumulation of all of that. But I do think overall it is what we call sophomore slump. I think he needs to, CJ Stroud specific, needs to be able to elevate his team past the O line challenges and ultimately the scheme challenges that he's been facing up until this point in the year.
Can I add something to that? So I personally think the regression and the sophomore slump per se, I think that's because they're not healthy. I think if you take Nico Collins away from that offense, right, and you
Right.
take away from that offense as far as like the last few games, they are not going to look good at all. CJ Stroud is not going to look good. If you take
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson away from the Vikings, Sam Darnold is going to look like Sam Darnold from the Jets. I'm like without KOC also, but like even Doug Peterson said it in a press conference. Like, what is so special about Sam Darnold? Justin Jefferson. So if you take away Nico Collins, their number one big target, who is like that from the Texans, there's going to be an obvious regression.
Yeah. But what do you have to say to the regression that we've seen even before that?
Even before then, they were still putting up lots of points. Their defense
Yeah.
aren't matching up as best
So
as they should,
let
but
me
they're
let
putting up.
me let me ask you this. So you think the production of Nico Collins coincides with the production of CJ Stroud? You don't think they can, work without each other and be successful?
I think it's hard when you have an alpha wide receiver like that out for multiple weeks. It's hard to do that. Like it's just really hard. I think any offense would struggle.
I
Um,
think, yeah,
Only some offenses would like actually succeed if they have great coaching. And D'Amico Ryans is a defensive coordinator, so it's like he's not cooking up the schemes. Offensive coordinator, he's getting kind of exposed this year. So I mean, and then you can't even blame CJ per se because that interior O line is ranked like top bottom five. So
yeah. And
I
no,
mean,
I do think the issue is kind of you're using the Sam Darnold comparison, and the difference is that we have different expectations for Sam Darnold compared to um, a
Yeah,
CJ
that's what I
Stroud.
was gonna say. Yeah.
That's ultimately it. I
I
think,
could bring up anybody that has
yeah.
that same tier of CJ
I
Stroud. Like
mean, Lamar Jackson, who's his best wide receiver, even going back to
Lamar has
last year.
been doing. Lamar's past CJ. Lamar can do it
Yeah,
without receivers. He's shown that.
right. That's what I'm saying though. Yes, last year we were
No one's
talking.
comparing CJ to Lamar.
No, last year there was comparisons that
Come
he
on,
could
man.
beat out.
Rookie year? No, I don't. No, I'm not buying that. I think there's tiers to it. I think
You,
CJ is at like tier three. Lamar's
yeah,
at tier one. CJ
yeah.
just entering tier three.
Tier
So,
three.
yeah,
I
tier
think
three,
I
four.
think a lot of people expected him to be in in tier two after last year. If not, like last year's performance put him into tier two.
Right, but he's not. He's a rookie, right? And if you take away all his weapons with a horrible O line, it's obvious they're going to be disappointing.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we're touching on.
CJ doesn't
I
have
don't think
rushing
we
upside.
I don't think we disagree that much, but I think you're trying to put the blame away from CJ. Where this, I'm just saying it's accountability. You're not playing that well, and that it's because of the O line. It's because of your lack of targets. But I've seen quarterbacks be able to elevate their teams without those certain circumstances being met. And I'm just outlining that in this circumstance with the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud has not been able to elevate his team past the struggles of the O line and the lack of wide receivers.
For sure. I just think if you take away somebody's best weapon or two, they're going to regress. If you take Hurts, if you take AJ Brown, we've seen what it looks like with Jalen Hurts and
Right.
Devontae Smith.
Right.
You know,
And I think we have I think CJ Stroud is probably better than Jalen Hurts, even after 1 year.
I agree.
Yeah. So I just think that he's in that class of wide receiver, I mean quarterback, that if we really want to cement him in that grade of that lower tier one quarterback or upper tier
You got
two
to do it
quarterback,
without him. I get what you're
he
saying.
that's what I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah. It's just tough when the odds are stacked against you. That's what
He
I'm saying.
still has he still has Tank Dell. He still has two good running backs.
He has Tank Dell, and he just got
He
Joe
has a
Mixon
tight
back.
end. He
Joe
I
Mixon was
yeah.
gone for a while.
True, but what I'm saying is he has multiple weapons still there. It's not like he's deprived of any weapons. He has some weapons that he can work with, and the O-line not being good is a detriment to his play, of course, as a non-running quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel it.
Yeah,
I
I'm just
think
a little disappointed. That's all I'm saying. I'm a little disappointed.
I think it's to be expected though. Like I wouldn't expect like that's my rebuttal to that. Like you can be disappointed, but it's
Yeah,
obvious be disappointed, but it's expected that he's gonna regress because of these
sure,
factors.
sure. I guess I have higher expectations for him
Okay.
than you do. It sounds like
Would you say he's better than Jordan Love?
I would say he's better than Jordan Love.
Okay. I mean, we did just see them play, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's fair.
Mm. All right. Nahum, what's your disappointment or just takeaway from the week?
Uh, I was going to say, guys, if whoever's watching this pod, don't gamble because I put $200 on the Mavericks beating Orlando that night, Vikings beating the Colts, and then the Seahawks beating the Rams. The Seahawks, and when I made this bet, the Seahawks were up 13-3 at halftime. This game was truly a roller coaster, and it was probably the most disgustingest game I've ever seen a quarterback play. Geno Smith is just so like, geez, they're gonna need to get a new quarterback. That's what I was thinking halfway through the third. Like, there's no way Geno Smith is throwing three interceptions. There's no way the play calling is that bad that on 4th and inches you do the most obvious Kenneth Walker play. Like it was just they didn't want to win. They didn't want to win. They had a chance to drive down the field in overtime and put it away, but the better quarterback and better team came back and scored a touchdown and put them away. And it's
Yeah.
crazy how Geno still has the job. He needs to be. No one talks about Geno
No, it's really not
out there.
Gino's fault. It's not
No,
Gino's
I've
fault.
seen him throw 3 interceptions, and they
Yeah.
were each interception got worse by interception. It wasn't getting better. So what are we doing here? Like he had multiple opportunities to put the game away.
Yeah.
That was a crucial
Yeah.
game, and he couldn't do it.
I hear you. I think the biggest issue with the Seattle Seahawks in general is they don't have one exceptional good unit. Like, what's their identity?
Supposed
It's
to be
like,
there, I guess.
right, it's supposed to be the secondary with the run game, and like he's more of a game manager, but you're asking him to do so much in that offense, and then your defense is not even like, taking care of business on the other side. It's like, I don't know what you expect from the guy. I don't think he needs to lose his job over that
He owes
performance,
me two
but
hundred at least. He
at
owes me
least
200, or he needs to lose his job. I
it's
don't
like,
know.
I hear you. You should go get your money back.
No, that was crazy work. Like it was just so much emotions, and like it's just like you just gotta put the ball in the end zone at least once, and not. They had so many chances in the red zone to put it in, and they just threw interceptions. He threw like 3 picks in the red zone.
Yeah, that blows. But don't put your money on the Seahawks. This is a
I
good
won't
life
ever. Yeah, I
lesson.
learned my lesson for
This is a
sure,
life lesson.
and I hope everybody watched it. And I hope they learned their lesson too from my example.
For me, my biggest takeaway from week 9, I have a couple. I'll start off just going off of that game, Seahawks Rams. I think the Rams are trending upwards. I feel like just ever since they got healthy, uh, they're a team, that can be reckoned with because, how talented they are on offense with Kyron Williams. Obviously, the play of Matthew Stafford and then the return of Nakua and Cooper Cup. And then, the other dude I'm forgetting, their wide receiver, I think he clinched the game for them. Is it Robinson?
Marcus Robinson,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, DeMarcus Robinson. Yeah, like they just have so many weapons on that side of the ball, and then defensively, like they have a good front seven, and I overall just like what they can do on that side of the ball too. So I feel like they're a team that's trending upwards, and they're going to be able to continue that play that they've been showing the past few weeks on this winning streak, and staying in that division. Another team that is looking legit is the Arizona Cardinals. They've been playing well. They were able to beat the Bears by 20, which some might say that's not impressive, but I think that just kind of shows the maturity of the team and where they're going. So I think they're another team that just they might be legit. I feel like guys are, starting to improve, and just as a team, I think Marvin Harrison's, getting featured a little bit more. Trey McBride's been playing well. James Conner's been really good. Their other running back that I'm forgetting, but had a touchdown near the end of the half, which was just crazy defense by the Bears, who just let on the 50-yard line, pretty much let a run go
Trey
into the end
Benson,
zone. What do you say his name was?
Trey Benson,
Nah,
or Mercado.
nah. Let me just confirm what his name was because he's been balling too. Yeah, Amari. Oh, DeMarcado. Yeah, DeMarcado. Yeah, he's been really good. Trey Benson's also been good. He scored a touchdown, but yeah, they just have a good backfield. Kyler Murray's been really good this year. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. And yeah, overall, just they're pretty good defensively. I mean, they've gotten better. Obviously, Gannon is a defensive minded head coach, so that helps. But I think they're a team that's showing maturity, and nobody would have thought that they'd be the number one team in the NFC West to this point. So, yeah, that division is just like really a toss up at this point with everybody, and how they've kind of been up and down. But I think the Cardinals have been consistent and they've made growth this year. So, yeah, they're another team like the Rams are trending upwards, and they look like they're a pretty legit team. And as it stands right now, um, the Vikings would travel to Arizona to play in the wild card round. So if that actually
Wow.
happens, sure, I'm definitely going to that game because I'm right here in Arizona. I'd love to see that, and that just be good for Arizona in general. They've been out of the playoffs for a few years now, and yeah, like I said, Kyler Murray's been playing really well. It's kind of proven some of his doubts was wrong in a sense. So would want to see that matchup. I wouldn't mind that at all. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Um,
That would be great. Yeah, I think I absolutely love what I think, what Kingsbury over here in Washington playing his, coaching his butt off.
yeah.
You would look at the Arizona Cardinals and think, what's going on there, but they've been able to do some great things. I think the offense is finally clicking. The running back is around this time is usually when he gets James Conner. That's usually when he gets injured. and he's been able to maintain his health. I think that's really helped the team. So, and then they have guys like Benson, like you mentioned, coming off, scoring touchdowns. Ultimately, this team is a lot more disciplined than I think they were in previous years, allowing them to play a better brand, more consistent brand of football. So I'm excited. I'm actually looking forward. I like watching the Cardinals play.
Yeah. So moving on to the topics for this week. Dak Prescott, hamstring injury is going to sideline him for at least the next month, and there's uncertainty on whether he'll return at all this season.
Hmm.
It hasn't, come out officially whether they're going to put him on short-term IR or whatever, but definitely going to miss at least the next 4 games. Um, so kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on how that'll affect the Cowboys. Of course, Cooper Rush is a quarterback that is going to come in, and he's someone that has a good record. He has come in for Dak Prescott in the past and has sustained the offensive level of productivity for the Cowboys. But this is a different Cowboys team who's struggling, on both sides of the ball. So what do you guys think that this Dak Prescott injury does to the Cowboys?
Me personally, I don't think it does that much. I actually was watching a press conference and the defensive coordinator for the Eagles, they asked Vic Fangio, they said, with Dak being out, what and Cooper Rush and what differences are you going to see here? He said nothing. There's not going to be any difference, and that just speaks on the magnitude of that contract they paid Dak. Like if you're the highest paid quarterback and your backup is 5-1, and the defensive coordinator does not fear you, it speaks it speaks so much about how Jerry Jones messed up the Cowboys by paying Dak that much, and by Dak showing that he's actually an overrated quarterback. I just think that it's not going to change that much. I think Cooper Rush is a great game manager. He might be a little bit better as far as like mobility, maybe. I think Dak has really regressed with his mobility, and that helped him in earlier years. So I think Cooper Rush is going to go in there. He's going to have a like fresh start as far as like him playing. Nobody has tape on him since 2, 3 years ago. So he's going to go out there firing, and they're going to play a lot of conservative football, run the ball, and stuff like that. So I don't think there's going to be that much of a drop off. And their defense is getting healthier, so you never know. They steal a win against the Eagles. Uh, yeah, that would be surprising, but it's not
Yeah.
much of a drop off.
Yeah, I actually disagree. I think I'm interested to see if that is the case or not. It could be the case. That is one, possible alternative. Um, what I'm thinking though is coming in, this team was supposed to be an offensive heavy team. I mean, not an offensive heavy, but a pass heavy team where we're looking to throw the ball 40, 50 times a game and then somehow play, through our defense as well. Now, what we've seen throughout this season is that their running game is not producing enough, and that's hurting their ability to get that pass attack really activated. Now, when you have a backup quarterback come in, the last thing you want is for your backup quarterback not to have a running game. That really affects the ability of the backup quarterback to really be just a game manager. And now the expectation is more so for you to take them over the top and make those 3rd and 8s and those long conversions and get them really down the field with just your arm power and your decision making. I think that's a precarious situation to put a backup quarterback in. I do know Cooper Rush is a good quarterback, good backup quarterback who's serviceable and can come in and do what you ask him to do. But without a running game, I think it's kind of doing him a disservice. Expecting him to step in as the 40-50 million dollar quarterback that is Dak Prescott. So I think this is an issue. We've talked a little bit offline about the diva in his wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb. How will CeeDee Lamb react to not getting the ball maybe on a crucial 3rd down, or not being able to, if they double cover him and other wide receivers aren't able to get fed? How does that feed into Cooper Rush's offensive production? So those are kind of the questions I have. The O-line is, of course, one of the top tier units, ongoing for 10 years or not, whatever. So that should help Cooper Rush on the opposite side. But ultimately, if the run game is not going to assist him, it's going to be hard to continue to drive down the field, with just Cooper Rush's, arm skills and decision making.
Can I add something real quick to that? I
Sure.
know we're going to be talking about trades or the trade winners and stuff like that next round, but Jerry Jones not being able to get Khalil Herbert for a seventh round pick, but spending a fourth round pick on Jonathan Mingo is just crazy work. That's
Yeah,
all.
I
But
completely agree. You're right. Jerry Jones doesn't do his team any favors.
Khalil Herbert would be great in that system.
Amazing, amazing,
Seven,
very above the service level.
man,
Yeah,
dude. I
I
played
hear you.
Madden GM so good that I think I could fix the guy for him. But
Uh, yeah, I think another piece to this is also like, I mean, their defense. I feel like it's fallen off drastically, and oftentimes the defense complements the offense, and their defense is among the worst in the league, definitely bottom five to my understanding. So I feel like that contributes as well because you're obviously leaving your offense to pick up the pieces, and they're on the field a lot of the game, and defense is not really helping them out in that regard, and that hasn't been the case in the Cowboys era, especially since Dak Prescott's come in. Their defense has been really good.
Hmm.
And even when Cooper Rush, when he was starting and when he was getting those wins, you guys mentioned they had the run game back then. They had the defense back then. And I think Mark Zimmer's like not been able to really figure it out and continue what Dan Quinn was establishing there since, he's been in Dallas. So it's unfortunate, but I think it also kind of works to that point as well. Yeah, their defense is one of the worst in the league. Their rushing game is one of the worst in the league. They haven't done enough to really improve on that side of the ball either. I feel like they've also had to deal with the injuries, which is a part of it. But I think it all works together, and it comes down to the offensive inefficiencies and some of the things that we've seen out of Dak Prescott this year, where it just hasn't been the same, and that's what we're seeing now.
Right.
So his absence, it's still, it plays an important role, obviously, because he's a really good quarterback. However, whatever your opinion is on, his contract, he's still a good quarterback. But I think anybody in this situation, like he's been this year, is going to struggle. So I think it'll be a surprise for me if Cooper Rush is able to figure it all out because it, works with the defense's inefficiencies and the rushing game's inefficiencies. That's not just on Cooper
Right.
Cup. So
Right.
that's another kind of way to look at it too.
Yeah. And to build on that, Marcos, I think you make a really good point about the defense. I touched on a little bit in my first rebuttal to what Nahum was saying. The idea of um, the without a run game, it's really hard to play complementary um, football and lean on your defense. It doesn't make sense if you're leaning on your defense, but also you have them on the field for a majority of the game. At which point it's harder to play defense because you're exuberating so much energy early on in the game. So the longer the defense is on the field, the worse they're going to perform, and that's one of the core tendencies of just football in general. So not being able to play complementary football was kind of a setup for the defense to begin with coming into the year. And then on top of that, that's compounded by Zimmer's inability to really coach up a good defense anymore. I haven't. When's the last time he was able to coach up a good defense? Probably like 2017, where every place he's been, even since leaving the Vikings, he hasn't been able to produce that level of defense again. He has some of those guys, this time around, and yes, I get it that not being able to play complementary football is helping, and that's not a situation that you'd like to be in to begin with. But even within that situation, Mike Zimmer hasn't been helping. So there's kind of like a compounding effect on the defensive side due to the lack of running game, Mike Zimmer. So that's an issue that I see that, putting a backup quarterback into that situation and asking him to throw 40 times, I don't think that's going to lead to many wins in this league.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Moving on. Next topic. So the Saints, they have had an eventful past week, I would say, with everything that's been going on with them. Starting off, in that game to the Panthers where they lost, they, obviously went through the Olave injury, which you never want to see, but that brought out a lot of I guess, turmoil on Twitter, where, I'm not sure if you guys are kind of filled in on this, but like the Michael Thomas tweets where he was just going on and on and on about Derek Carr. And like, we've never really seen a former player do that about, one of their quarterbacks. And he was just, pretty much saying everything. He even posted a video about like this fan bashing Derek Carr and it's like, what do you think about Derek Carr? And then like, it was just like playing into it and just saying all these things about Derek Carr. And it was just basically like, you can fire the coaches, you can fire all this, but like you still got Derek Carr there. And basically that whole thing was going on. Um, and then, after the game where they lost, Chris Olave and his brother was saying stuff on Twitter too. And then you had Cam Jordan and I think Sanders or Saunders, one of the defensive linemen on that team, was on Twitter as well, just like saying like we really lost to Carolina, like this is crazy, and just we're really like open about it, which you don't really see from players. And of course that led to the Dennis Allen firing, which we all kind of saw coming to that point. Um, and then a day or something later, Marshon Lattimore gets traded. So what do you guys kind of think about everything that's been unfolding in New Orleans, I guess?
I personally think that I mean the Dennis Allen firing should have happened last year, to be honest. Beginning of last year. I don't think he was fit to coach that team. He's a good coach on the defensive side of the ball,
Yeah.
but as far as schemes and everything like that, I didn't see it. And sometimes his defense would give up a lot of yards. So at that point, you're gonna lose a locker room somehow or another. As far as Michael Thomas, I mean, this is a guy that went rogue. Like no one wanted to pick him up, so he's on his couch salty. Um, and one of the reasons why he's salty is because of Derek Carr, and probably he just didn't get enough yards, or I don't know. There's some type of animosity there. Maybe CTE plays a factor in it too, as far as him just going full AB mode as far as the tweets. I don't really take that serious.
Jeez.
Yeah,
He
dude.
said, "Jeez."
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, shit.
No, hey, football hits you and you start acting different. But as far as like the firing that should have happened and Chris Olave, like it sucks to see him go out like that. I mean, 5 concussions in one season is it's not even week 10 is wild. And we don't even know how much he had in college. So, he's gonna have a long conversation. I think we focus on concussions with Tua, but like there's some receivers that are in a pattern, and maybe some of it was Derek Carr's fault by just throwing him into bad situations. But I don't know. It looks like there's a hit list out for him sometimes when he plays. So it's a tough situation, but maybe they get a better coach, maybe get Ben Johnson over there, turn things around. Derek Carr would probably look even better if he had a Ben Johnson. They paid him, a good sum of money to get him, but there's always a better option out there, and they have some pieces to piece things together. So yeah.
Yeah, honestly, I have no thoughts. Alvin Kamara gets beer for a lifetime because he signed that extension with them, local brewery in New Orleans. So that's all my thoughts on this situation.
Okay, that's interesting. So, what about the Marshon Lattimore trade? What do you guys think about that? What he does for the Commanders?
Yeah, now that I care about. I absolutely love that. I thought this is the type of aggression that is a hallmark of good organizations, and that's kind of weird talking about the Washington Commanders in that light. But they have a head coach who has real personality, who's can be a leader of men, and then on the offensive side of the ball, he got Jaden Daniels, and
Tim
Cliff
Rose fan, yeah.
Clinsbury. I wish he came to Minnesota, really. But that stack of quarterback, head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback is something that's rare, to hit on, especially all in one year. So finally, you have all of those pieces together. And now the only thing that's missing is rounding out that defense. We talked early in the season about Washington having a good offense, but their secondary was so awful that they'd have to be throwing the ball 50 times a game. So this helps shore that up, gives you a lead DB moving into the playoff push. I absolutely love it. So this is the aggression that I want to see from the Washington Commanders. I don't know if he'll be ready this week to play, but I bet he'll get a couple reps in practice. But I expect to see him in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm gonna just touch on that too. as far as a fit, I mean, Dan Quinn loves his like. I think a Dan Quinn defense, the staple usually focuses on a good pass rush, and then he always has a CB1, a star CB1 he can turn to. Seattle, he had Richard Sherman. Dallas, he had Deron Bland and Trayvon Diggs. This will definitely add a signature to that team. Um, the only thing is, Marshon Lattimore is a little older as a cornerback. He is a little banged up this season. I would have loved if they went for like a J.C. Horn, somebody younger that fits the time frame of that group. But I mean, I applaud their aggression because a lot of teams
Yeah.
they don't go for moves like that.
Right.
So shout out,
And
shout out,
and they got him for a decent price. CJ Horn would have went for probably considerably more.
maybe a little bit more, but they've been talking about dumping him. So
Yeah.
Okay, last topic we have favorite trade deadline moves. So, we mentioned some of them briefly already. What would you guys say some of your favorites that you saw?
Yeah, I think we had this conversation last time that we joined you, Marcos, and I said towards the end of it that I would like to see the Lions go out there and grab a defensive end, and that's exactly what they did. He's not Miles Garrett, but he is Zadarius Smith, a guy that we as Vikings fans are familiar with, of course. I think he's still a talent. He can provide something that is kind of from the edge I mean, not on the Hutchinson level, but an aggression that helps that defense kind of round out. The core in the playoffs is going to be, can you know, increase the pressure on the quarterback? Zadarius Smith has shown the capability of doing that, just 2 years ago, even last year. So that was probably my favorite move of the deadline, but I do have another one, but I'll let you guys go ahead.
I would have to say my favorite was Jonathan Mingo going to the Cowboys. No, I'm
Hmm.
fine. I can't even say that
I
serious.
Whoa.
was gonna say, I was so shook.
Explain yourself.
My favorite play was the Steelers being ultra aggressive and getting Mike Williams to pair with George Pickens. I think that complements George Pickens in so many ways. They get a 50-50 ball, up in the air type of guy. And Russell has that deep moon ball that he likes to throw. So we're going to see a lot of connections between them two. And I also
Right.
like the aggressiveness as far as like them building on their strengths. They already have a great pass rush, and they get Preston Smith from the Packers, and he's solid. So I mean, they're starting to look a little scary, and no one would have thought that, beginning of week one. So shout out them for being that aggressive.
Completely agree. I absolutely love that pick. I think they did a fantastic job of grabbing wide receivers who are complementary to the quarterback that you have. So,
Yeah. You guys mentioned some pretty good ones. Looking at these, I think technically not on like the deadline day or whatever, but I think the Cam Robinson move for the Vikings, getting him from the Jaguars, I feel like that was
hmm.
really good. That addressed a huge need for the Vikings who, obviously had a glaring need at that position when Darisaw went down for the season, and we even saw it when he went out of that game against the Rams. All the pressure that was coming from that side. Robinson coming in midweek and then being able to do what he was doing without really knowing the full playbook, not allowing any pressures against the Colts. Man, I mean, that was just really impressive. I mean, I know the Chiefs wanted him as well, so glad the Vikings were able to get him in here for a conditional fifth rounder in
For sure.
2026, and that's just really elite moves, and that's just what I've been seeing from this front office. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, shout
Thank
out to
you.
him, and then obviously I think this obviously not really a deadline move as well, but DeAndre Hopkins, we saw him really break out against the
Hmm.
the the Buccaneers on Monday night, getting a couple touchdowns. So I like those moves. Um, there's some interesting ones as well. Khalil Herbert, we mentioned already. I mean, that can be a pretty good move for a seventh round pick. I mean, you like that sort of move. Tre'Davious White,
Yeah.
another move, that could, get something out of that. When you don't have to trade too much and get some of these players, I mean, I think it's worth the
Hmm.
risk. So,
Right. Right.
I like some of these moves. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Yosef, you had another one?
Yeah, it's kind of down that same alley of getting guys who provide value with for very little. I thought the Ravens getting Deontay Johnson as a backup, a wide receiver too, is a fantastic move. They gave up something like I think they moved down maybe 10 to 15 picks when it's all said and done to get Deontay Johnson. It was essentially they gave a sixth, they got a seventh from the Panthers. The Panthers seventh is probably going to be very high, and the Ravens sixth is probably going to be very low. So very, very phenomenal move. I think that when you look at this offense, the one thing I always have been criticizing the front office is you give too much, to Lamar to just take care of. Yeah, Zay Smith is good, Zay Flowers is good, but he's not big enough to really get those contested catches in the playoffs. They're not going to call those ticky tacky holds in the playoffs. How are you going to get around that? I think a guy like Deontay Johnson, who runs crisp routes and gets open, is the exact type of guy for Lamar Jackson, who's shown that he can be a super accurate quarterback. He's going to have time. He's going to have the run game. Now he's going to have the two guys who can get open in single coverage. So I'm excited, super happy about that. So I think that was the great move that I think really puts them right there. I honestly think the Ravens should be the Super Bowl favorites. I just don't see any holes in their team outside of maybe their defense. So it's like, to me, when I see this team make a move like this, I get intrigued and I get interested.
Hmm. Yeah, I think they just have to get past the Chiefs, and once they're able to do that, I mean that's pretty much nobody else in the way standing in their way. I mean Houston and Cincinnati's not really a threat this year. Miami might come up, but like really nobody else is gonna get into
The
their
Bills.
way. The
Let's,
Bills,
yeah, I
again,
like the Bills.
I just, I mean, they did add Amari Cooper. I like that move, but
Hmm.
again, I just don't think they're as seasoned as the Ravens who have been around, been trying to get over that hump for a while. So
Yeah,
the Bills have been around, but I mean, I feel like the Ravens are more like championship ready, if that makes sense.
I
But
think
it's really just
slightly. Yeah, I
slightly, but
agree.
it's
I
about
agree.
getting past the team that we're all like looking at in the AFC and the NFL in general. Kansas
Yeah.
City Chiefs, whether they're in an offensive firepower mode or just like just strolling through the game, they're still able to get
Hmm.
wins and
Yeah.
win when it matters. So that's really
Yeah.
the team to
That's
beat. But
yeah.
yeah,
And that's what I love about this move is that it wasn't required. Like the Bills getting Amari Cooper was almost a necessity. The Chiefs getting D Hop was nearly a necessity. The Ravens getting Deontay Johnson was a luxury. And this like speaks to the goal that they have in mind. And I absolutely love it.
all right. Upset pick of the week time. I'll go first with mine. I'm gonna say Bucks over 49ers. They're
Love that.
the underdogs, 6.5 underdogs. The Bucks are. I feel like they, let one slip on Monday night against the Chiefs. I feel like they should have went for two at the end of that game and sealed it, giving the Chiefs their first loss, but decided to go for the tie, go to overtime, and didn't get the ball back once the Chiefs won the coin toss, drive down the field and score. So I think this is a team that's going to need this win, especially with how the Falcons are looking right now. And I feel like it could come in, at this time when the 49ers, aren't at their peak levels. So I would say that's my upset
Yeah.
pick.
I love that. I love that pick. I was thinking the same thing. I love that spread is way too big for me. The 49ers aren't clicking, on all cylinders. And the Bucks, I just love the way they play and their aggression. I don't think they're gonna, just lay down and take a second loss back to back. So I really see a good fight, a good game in this one. My upset pick for going into week 10 is I have the Steelers beating the Commanders, who are favored by 2.5 points. So thank you, Nahum. You touched on a little bit of the pieces that they've brought in the trade deadline from defense and offensive side of the ball. But ultimately, what I think will be the decider here is just the pass rush. The pass rush for the Steelers is something maybe the Commanders haven't seen. Jaden Daniels hasn't seen, and he can get out of the pocket and throw it as we've seen. But the discipline of the Steelers makes it so that he might have a spy on him, but ultimately everyone knows what they're doing on the field on the defensive side. So he's not going to be able to get any broken coverages or go for 20, 30-yard runs. They'll have him contained, in my opinion. And what the goal is going to be is to make sure he's holding on to the ball longer than he wants to. So ultimately, I'm excited to see this game and this matchup. But I have the Steelers winning this one.
Solid pick, solid pick. I'm gonna have to go Miami over Rams Monday night. I think
Wow.
the do or die game. This is their season on the line. It's at
Mhm.
Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Monday night. The lights can't get any bigger than this, and this is going to be a game where Tua, Tyreek, and Waddle are going to have to put that high-powered offense together to get this win. Because if they don't get this win and the Jets win, their season's essentially over.
Yeah.
I know they're. I don't know the line on that game, but I know they're underdogs for sure. So I'd definitely go Miami.
Yeah, you know what? I like that pick ultimately because you're playing against the Rams defense that isn't, particularly scary. And if the O-line can hold up for Miami, they have a real shot at it. They're not, the Rams aren't anything scary, but they are a team that's finally getting themselves figured out and catching their stride. So I'm a little wary about that, but I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah, Miami almost got the win last week against Buffalo. So I feel like they're a team that's playing a little bit more desperate. And then, like I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, I feel like the Rams are a team that's trending upwards. So I think that'll be a really good game. But yeah, it's a 1.5 point spread. So
Wow.
yeah, they are the underdogs technically, but it'll be a good game, I think. Um, but yeah, before we sign out, I know we talked some NBA before the pod. Is there anything we want to get off our chest here before we sign out with the NBA?
Oh, NBA. I think I'm very surprised on how well the Golden State Warriors are playing defense. That's something that, it's kind of scary. When the Warriors defense is good, that means Steph Curry has a chance to put you out at the last minutes. That always makes me wary. But outside of that, man, OKC's looking like a freaking juggernaut, the buzzsaw. So I'm a little scared about that. But we'll see what the West shapes out to be in about a month or so. We should have a more clear picture of who's doing what.
Yeah, I just want to say, Milwaukee, you can kiss Giannis goodbye. He
He's gone. He's
he's
gone.
he's already mentally checked out. Like he's gonna drop a 30 piece, but he's done for. Like, and it just speaks so much volume on that Drew Holiday trade. I think that really put
Yeah.
the fork in the knife or the fork in the chicken or whatever saying. You know what I
Yeah.
think that right there
Yeah.
definitely like had the Bucks and swindles like watching the Celtics become that elite. Um, so yeah, also if you can,
The fork in the chicken is hilarious.
Yeah, he was
what's the
trying
saying? What's
it.
the saying? What's the saying?
Oh
Uh,
shit, I don't even know. You got me lost.
I know what you're trying to say though.
The
Yeah,
fork in the road. You're saying the
fork in
fork
the
in the
road.
road.
Okay,
Yeah,
here we go.
facts. No, I do agree though. Them losing Drew Holiday was the most dumb move that I like. And then the Celtics picked them up, which insane behavior. Yeah,
And they essentially won another ring in
yeah.
Giannis. So and
This,
Middleton, they think Middleton's gonna be a savior. So
yeah.
yeah,
Middleton should have went instead of Drew Holiday, but
right. What about you,
what?
Mark?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I will say the Cavs look really good. They're obviously the only remaining undefeated team in the league right now. I mean, I'm surprised with how good they're looking and how much the coaching change really helps them. I feel like they're all really coexisting really well in the past. When Donovan Mitchell first came in, that really lessened the productivity of
Is it
Darius
coach right now?
Garland. Kenny Atkinson's their coach now. JB Bickerstaff used to be their coach. Now he's with Detroit. But yeah, Darius Garland, like the addition of Donovan Mitchell really affected him in his development. He was an all-star before Donovan Mitchell came in, and then obviously the rookie year of Evan Mobley, that didn't really continue with his progression once Donovan came in. He's a player that obviously commands a lot of touches now, but now they're able to really coexist and they look really good overall as a team. This is a team that's, hasn't really put it together when it comes to playoff basketball. So I'm interested to see how that'll translate. I feel like they'll be a really good team this year. They're playing well on both sides of the ball. And then on the other side of the conferences, Phoenix Suns, they're another team who's undergone a coaching change and they look really good
yeah,
defensively. I like what they're doing, and then offensively they just look a lot better. Where last year we clearly saw how not having a point guard affected them. They just look really good on both sides of the ball. Like what I'm seeing from them. The Thunder looked really good. Of course, they were a team that was undefeated, lost to the Nuggets last night. The Warriors, I'm surprised with them being 7-1 at this point. I didn't think they were going to be even a playoff team with losing Clay Thompson. But Buddy Hield, I mean, like, man's balling. Buddy Hield is going crazy. Kyle Anderson,
yeah,
like I mentioned before the pod, he's doing really well. Um,
yeah.
I've been
Um,
watching the Knicks. I've been watching the Knicks too. Lastly, I've been
yeah.
watching the Knicks.
Mm-mm.
They're still trying to figure it out with the chemistry a little bit, but
Hmm.
individual numbers have been there for Cat and Brunson in parts. I think Mikal Bridges has gotten going a little bit, but yeah, they just got to figure it out. And once they figure it out, especially with the Brunson and Cat dynamic, I think that really unlocks them, takes them to a whole new level. Because last game they should have won really last night. They had a big, they had a 5 point lead with a couple minutes left to go in that game and lost that game. So those are games you can't afford to lose. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Where
I
do you
do.
guys think Giannis going? Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing on the Knicks, Cat has been balling, and honestly, he cooked Bam Adebayo against the Heat, and I was kind of surprised. Like Bam Adebayo is, I think, one of the top three defenders in the league, and his ability to give him straight buckets inside, outside, just any way he wanted to was kind of impressive, and I think bodes well for the Knicks, frankly. But there was one last topic I wanted to touch on, and you touched on it. It was the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Mhm.
They remind me of the Timberwolves transition between 22-23 Timberwolves versus 23-24 Timberwolves. You know, a large front court, great point guard, great shooting guard. Once that team meshes and learns how to play with cohesion, they have an opportunity to be a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense. And I'm excited really to see them put that together because I think they have all the ingredients to do so. It's just whether those ingredients will mesh into a good cake or not. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
They
You
watched
know?
the blueprint of the Timberwolves, and they're like, "We're gonna rock that out."
They definitely did. And now Evan Mobley is actually doing decent, you know? So it helps
Uh,
a lot. And
I
and
was
Mo
gonna say,
Mitchell's also like what's it called to Mobley a lot. I mean, he's been deferring to um his point guard a lot, Darius Garland a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this team's already a top 10 on both sides of the ball. They're the number one offense in the league right now. And
Yeah,
defensively, I mean, they've always, I think they could always play defense with just having the 2 7-footers there. It gives you an
right.
advantage for sure. So I feel like they'll be able to sustain that for the duration of the season. It's just a matter of will that translate to playoff basketball? Now, obviously, Boston's on a different level, but Cleveland, are they going to be the team that's going to be the number one contender for what Boston, has as the Eastern Conference champion? That's the thing that will take them to the next level, even if they're unable to beat Boston. They're a team last year that lost in the second round to Boston. So are they going to be able to beat those other teams that are in their way? And can they, hold on to a top two seed? I feel that'll do them really well if they're, going to be able to, go far in the playoffs. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
And the last thing you guys obviously mentioned with Giannis and everything like that, I definitely did not expect the Bucks and the Sixers to hold the 14 and the 15 spot in the Eastern Conference this far into the season, which is crazy to me. You guys obviously mentioned Drew Holiday, and that whole thing really just hasn't worked out with Milwaukee, and especially Doc Rivers, that hasn't worked out at all. I'm interested to see how long that's going to last with him there. They actually have a better record with Adrian Griffin in the same amount of
Wow.
games played. So that's something. And then yeah, Philly injuries. Obviously, Joel Embiid. That whole thing has been going on with him not playing, and then he had the situation where he shoved the columnist. Now got suspended 3 games. That's another thing. Maxey just got injured, so now they just announced he's going to be out for the next few weeks. And Paul George is just getting acclimated into the team now. Played
Hmm.
like his second game yesterday, so they just have a lot of things going on, and it's disappointing so far. So I don't know if some
Yeah.
of these teams could make some early coaching changes. We'll see about that. But yeah, that's everything we got, man. Appreciate you guys coming on to the pod. Yosef, hope you have a good time tonight. Cheer on those Timberwolves, man. Make that United Center, go crazy for the Timberwolves. I know we haven't won there in a minute, so that'll be a good game probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, appreciate you guys coming on.
Yes,
Episode
sir.
101 in the books. Peace.